Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video I'm going to talk to you a little bit about when a dismissive avoidant, fearful avoidant, or anxious preoccupied, or even secure person for that matter, when their actions are no longer okay in a relationship, and when it's no longer like maybe a suitable situation for you to be in. So we're going to go into this in quite a bit of detail and give you a really clear way of defining and understanding like when things are okay and when they're not, and some strategies to use to sort of move yourself along. So before I dive in, please know we're still doing a sale to support our community. The coupon code is with you, all one word, for 25% off of our all access pass for 3-month, 6-month, 12-month bundles, and you were able to jump in there, and it gives you access to all courses as well as all webinars and ongoing live webinars weekly, and our community. And our lifetime membership, which is 50% off for our launch period, which ends October 10th. Those things are both in the description box below, and I'll put a card on this video as well. So let's talk about this for a second. So I really like to discuss this idea of our net output of behavior. And really what this means, and the analogy I often use it most so for, is for dismissive avoidance. And you can sort of think that when you're getting into a relationship with a dismissive avoidant, and the same thing applies for an FA, an AA, even a securely attached person, you sort of have like their interest in you minus their fears. And so let's say for a dismissive avoidant, for example, they're 7 out of 10 interested, but their fears are a 6 out of 10. You sort of get this net output of behavior or action towards putting investment into the relationship as like a positive 1. And so this is something that we have to be so mindful and aware of. And I talk a lot on this channel about the sponsoring intention behind people's actions, like really working to understand them, because knowledge equals personal empowerment, and it also equals the ability to not take things personally, the ability to impact our self-esteem tremendously when we're not busy personalizing things all day or, on a very frequent basis. It prevents unnecessary pain and suffering. And it's really good for your programming to not take things personally and to understand what other people's actions might be rooted in, so that we're not, sort of like passing this emotional poison around where somebody's in a bad mood and then we see that and we take it on and we make it ours, and then we poison ourselves with that because we're personalizing it, and then we go and we've just, sponged up and internalized these sort of emotional toxins, and now it's ours, and it's not good for us. Okay, so I talk a lot about this on this channel, but what I really want to be clear about, and what we talk a lot about inside of the school, but maybe not so much enough on this channel, is that you can't use one to then justify the other. So we can't date a person's potential just because we understand, for example, somebody's 6 out of 10 pain with their 7 or 8 out of 10 interest, or 10 out of 10 interest, whatever it might be. If we're not okay with receiving a 4 out of 10, then we have to realize we can't date who the person would be if they were only in their feelings and not in their fears, or not in their wounds or challenges or pain points. And this doesn't mean like jump away from a relationship if it's not working right now and just leave immediately and get out of there. But it means we have to take that into proper consideration. And the flip side of understanding people's sponsoring intentions and doing all this amazing, having all these amazing results as a byproduct of that. So feeling like you're not taking things as personally, your self-esteem is boosted, all these different things, is if we do reach a point where then we are putting up with things that we shouldn't be putting up with, then the flip side of that becomes suddenly we're damaging our self-esteem from the reverse end, right? We're through behaviors and actions making things okay that aren't actually okay with us, and not setting boundaries and not communicating our needs, or being okay with not getting our needs met in a relationship. And that diminishes our self-esteem as well. Because if you can imagine you could externalize that, it's like somebody's following you around all day going, oh, it's fine, just repress your feelings. It doesn't matter how people treat you. It's okay. Your feelings and needs don't really matter. Your boundaries should be ignored. Like if somebody was telling you that all day, it wouldn't feel good. And so if you go too far down this rabbit hole of like understanding, but then not taking yourself into consideration at the same time, or justifying on behalf of other people, that's not good either. And so, I talk a lot on this channel about taking ourselves into consideration and boundaries and needs and all these different things that are so important. But I want to give you a few steps specific to this topic for if you find yourself in this situation. So once we've recognized the net output of behavior, and this is something I would do, like actually, of course you don't have an actual number, but if we can use numbers to sort of like recognize where we're at in a relationship or dynamic, it can be very, very beneficial because it makes things very clear for us. So let's say you're in a friendship, okay? And let's say, you really want a lot of connection in a friendship and it's really important to you to have, daily touching base and lots of ongoing conversations and communication for, this type of friendship that you have. Maybe you've known the person for quite a long time or you've really clicked or something like this. If you see that this person is afraid of friendships for whatever reason. Maybe they have trust wounds. Maybe they have, fears from a different situation. And of course, this super applies to romantic relationships. Maybe you see the way they feel towards you might seem by the things they say, by how they show up in certain ways, or when their wounds aren't triggered, maybe like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. But then if you see a lot of fears that they have and those are coming up and getting in the way and you notice these push-pull dynamics and there's these inconsistencies, maybe you see those fears or those wounds or those negative aspects of their programming from painful past events makes, that be a negative 7. And so now what's your net output of behavior? Maybe it's a positive 1 or a positive 2. So I want you in a relationship that you might be questioning to do that first, okay? And we're going to follow this up with some steps. Now, what you then want to make sure you are actively doing, because these ideas are not mutually exclusive, they go hand in hand, and one without the other becomes imbalanced and it creates our own suffering. So then you want to recognize the sponsoring intention behind the actions. You want to understand the person's fears, their wounds, their pain points, and you want to really be able to empathize and have compassion for them through understanding, through an awareness, through knowing what's going on. And what that does is it helps you prevent yourself from going, oh, because so-and-so doesn't want to be in a relationship with me or doesn't, connect to me the way I want them to, it makes me unworthy. You don't put your self-esteem in the hands of another person and make somebody's actions from their wounds mean something about your self-esteem as a human being. So it's extremely important to get that step right, okay? You're not storytelling and going, oh, they don't care and that means I'm unworthy or I'm unlovable or I'm not good enough or I'm always going to be rejected or I'll always be alone. Like all of those things mean you've just taken you and who you are as a whole and your character and put it in the hands of another person's actions, which are probably coming from their own wounds and fears and have absolutely nothing to do with you in the first place, or very, 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 very little. So we want to avoid doing that by getting that step correctly. And then we want to ask ourselves, how are we doing with this net output of behavior? Are we okay with the 2 out of 10? Maybe it's a 7 out of 10. Maybe the person's interested in 10 and their fears and wounds are showing up as like a 3. And, where do we draw the line for what's okay for us and then what's not so much okay? And that's really important, okay? So we have to decide, what are our boundaries? Then what we want to do next is we want to be able to look at the situation and go, what's my deadline for me to try to move the needle to get it to where I want to become? You might look and go, oh my goodness, I just realized I'm getting a net 1 and I'm not okay with that and I'm not even going to work on it. My deadline is right now. In fact, my deadline should have been 6 months ago or 12 months ago or 3 years ago or 10, who knows, right? But we want to put ourselves in a position where you're looking at that and you're asking yourself, okay, so what is my deadline? Maybe you're like, you know what, I'm getting a 7, but I really want an 8.5. And I feel like anything less than an 8.5 of me feeling like truly fulfilled and like this is really, really good, even at its lowest moments, I'm getting this 8.5. You want to, sorry, I have to sneeze. Oh, okay, sorry. So you want to be able to put yourself in a position where you're like, I have this 8.5 here and, I'm okay with that. But if you're going from 7 to 8.5, put a deadline. If a 7 is like, no, definitely not okay, then what do I need to do to get it to an 8.5? What are my strategies? What can I put into position here to excel this? Communicate my needs, set my boundaries, share more vulnerably, ask for vulnerability, understand the person's needs more, communicate different. Like there's so many things you can do, but put some strategies together. So it's not just this like autopilot, it should be different and yet I'm not going to do anything. And what I want you to recognize too is that the more healed you are and the better you are at understanding your own needs, understanding your own boundaries, communicating these things, mastering these things, the more you're healed of like codependent patterns or old stories you're carrying about yourself at the subconscious level, the more empowered you feel to just leave something that's not working. The more empowered you feel to set a boundary and be like, no, this is not okay. Or look, here, this is okay, and this is how much time you have left to sort of fix this dynamic. But you're willing to put in the effort too. So be clear that your next step in here is to keep building your self-esteem and doing the healing in here in the meantime as you set this deadline. And then if you reach a deadline and you're like, you know what, we're still at a 7 and I'm not okay being at a 7 for the rest of my life in a relationship, or I'm not okay having friendships around that are just a 7, or maybe you're like, you know what, I was at a 5 and I was trying to get to a 9 and it only really moved to a 6. You know, what the net output is of the behavior is like, you have to recognize, chances are, how somebody's showing up now, unless they are doing the work within themselves, unless they're working with you as you're putting that deadline into play, then you're probably going to keep getting what you've been getting. And you have to ask yourself, is that really truly okay with me? And so these are your steps to make that decision. And so as you are asking somebody else to do the work, make sure you're also working on healing yourself, showing up for yourself, so that by the time you reach that deadline, it's going to feel pretty easy and clear and straightforward to leave something if it's not serving you. So I hope this all makes sense. I really wanted to address this because I think I split up how I talk about this, and like talking about your needs and your boundaries and taking yourself into consideration, and ending codependency over here, and then depersonalizing and you know, not storytelling and all these things over here. And what I want you to realize is they all go together. They're not mutually exclusive things. You need both. And both of these things together really create that healthy interdependency. So I hope this makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're getting a lot of value out of this channel. And I will see you in the next video.